In the late 80s, early 90s, that hard had taken the city of New Orleans by storm. Dudes from every project in every hood were getting it how they lived. Before the iron slinging, there would be street fights, hood versus hood, project versus project. These fights would often spill over to school. If you know, you know. Majority of the people out the Melph and the Yo would attend Durham Middle, along with people from the 3NG area. As young hustlers would begin to making their bread in the streets, one of the first things that they would do was hit up first in Claiborne to get slugged up. Before there was such a thing as a hot boy, street dudes would be identified by their project or hood. For example, the dudes out the Yo would be identified as them boys from back of town or them boys from front of town. Dudes out the Noya would be identified as them boys out the Noya. The Melph would simply be the Melph boys. This would be during the era of Polo and Jabos. A few would rock Tommy. Lord and Taylor's and Macy's, two stores located in the New Orleans center, had that work. Lord and Taylor's would even have rugbies that the Polo shop and Rube didn't have. Bally shoes and tennis were in full effect. Thunders, boats, spiders, hunters, Euros, Ace, competitions, Mirage, Marina, and the Bally Lilies, the girl version of the Marinas, just to name a few. If you was rocking them B's back in the G, drop the names in the comments. Some of the flyest dudes out the Melph were Norris, Tyron, Cliff, Roddy Love, and Turtle, just to name a few. During this era of the game, hustlers were spinning in lacs, Oldsmobiles, Ford Tauruses, and Buicks. The whips would either be dripped in candy paint or metal flaked out, sitting on either truths and vows or disses and vows. That boy Tyron was sliding through the city in that burgundy Delta 88 thing, sitting on discs and vows. Like a lot of street dudes out the hood, Tyron would encourage the kids to stay in school, even throwing them a few dollars here and there. Just like all of the projects and the NO, the Melph was crucial. For a long time, the MLK side of the Melph would be known as the graveyard. Despite the reputation of the Melph, dudes out of the hoods would still try to get at the girls out the Melph. Noogie, Duddy, and Missy, mother of Lil JC, just to name a few. Rumor on the street was that dudes would get hit up on Clio, aka CL10, stumble across Dahlia, and collapse on MLK. Back in the G, Tyron ran with a lot of respected dudes off MLK. His clique had some real hitters from out that Melph. Tech 9 of the rap group UNLV would even mention Tyron and Lil Creature in a verse on his Straight from the Ramp album. That yayo would have dudes out the hood getting real money in the late 80s, early 90s. When that hard white hit the scene, everybody was getting paper. Dudes from every hood would go from little dirty bum dudes to being that nigga seemingly overnight. However, that hard wouldn't be the only thing bumping in the streets at the time. Moving that doochie was where the real money would come in. And H would have a huge impact on the entire city. That boy was turning not only hustlers, but the everyday working man and woman into hardcore dope fiends. Unlike other vices, that doochie would create a dependency wherein which your body would need it. It is this dependency that will make that monkey hard to shake. Just like a lot of dudes in the streets, it wouldn't be long before Tyron's weakness for that boy would transform him into a real demon, jacking, crushing, and napping just to support his habit. Before them silver packs would sink their hooks in Tyron, you could never catch him slipping without the heaters. In an unfortunate turn of events, Tyron would get caught slipping without the blicky, ultimately ending up losing his life to the streets. His habit had finally caught up with him. The reoccurring circle of violence would continue for years in the Melph. At one point, the NOPD would refer to the Melph as 11-5 Alley. If you know, you know. As new generations would come up in the Melph, so would new crews. The Gotti Boys would be one of those notorious crews. In 2008, the television series Gangland would release a documentary on the Gotti Boys. Told by several members of the crew and law enforcement officials, there will be a tad bit of exaggeration in this series, sensationalizing a lot of what actually happened during that time. I'm pretty sure the real street dudes that were involved in the filming were not shown the final cut before the doc was released. The two-part documentary will make an attempt at covering how the Gotti boys were rocking in the 3rd Ward of the Indo before, during, and after the effects left from the devastation caused by Hurricane Katrina. Beyond the brick exterior and ramps of the Melph, which was once one of the newest projects in the city, will be the rise of other notorious street crews like YMM, short for Young Melph Mafia. Despite the relative young ages of its members, the Young Melph Mafia will be a problem for the NOPD 6th District for years. YMM will be blamed for an Irish Channel shootout that had taken place in October of 2010. In August of 2015, a federal grand jury will return a 31-count superseding indictment, including RICO charges against YMM. The indictment would accuse the men of committing 5 homicides as well as multiple violations of federal illegal substances and firearm laws. This was the story of Tyron out the Melph.